All right, so one last thing that I want to do in this application here is something that we've been putting off a little bit, but it's a fairly central feature of our app, so I think it's important that we do it now. And that is we want to make our app actually render the Markdown syntax into something, basically into HTML. And that is that we want our app to actually render the Markdown that our users put inside of their notes. Now, in order to do this, there's a very simple solution, and that is using a third-party library called React Markdown. So let's install that into our project here. We're going to say npm install React Markdown and hit enter, and that will install that package for us. So essentially all we have to do now in our note detail page in order to display this thing is use a component that's exported by that package we just installed, which is going to be called React Markdown. Not a super creative name, but it'll work. So what we're going to do in our note detail page is we're going to say import React Markdown from React Markdown. And all we have to do to make this work now, it's actually quite simple. You might be mad at me that I didn't show you this earlier, is we're going to change this paragraph tag that we're displaying our note content into a React Markdown component. And inside those tags, we're just going to display our notes content, okay? And our React Markdown component, what that will do is actually take care of rendering all of the Markdown that's inside our content into actual elements. So what you're going to see here, if we go back here and, oops, we need to start up our app again with npm run start. And what you're going to see is that it will look completely different now. So let's just wait for it to come up here. And there we go. So our little asterisks on either side have finally turned into actual italic text. So what we can do if we want to is just add a few more things, right? Feel free to look up a Markdown reference if you're interested. If we say this is a note, that'll display it as sort of an H1 heading in our note. If we use triple backticks, that will display code in that spot, which is pretty cool. We can say this is code and close that off. And if we save our changes now, we'll see that those things are actually displayed as their corresponding elements in Markdown. Again, feel free to just look up Markdown syntax if you want a refresher on how Markdown works and some of the basic syntax there. But as I said at the very beginning when we were first building this app, non-technical folks generally tend to like using Markdown instead of having to write HTML and do all of that kind of stuff. So being able to render Markdown in here, especially in a note-taking app like this one, is a big step forward for our app, and it only took us, a minute or two. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.